Kamala Harris for VP? That don't sound no kind of right. That don't sound for VP.
Mic check, Lady Marche studio.
I got text messages where I asked you to come off.
You didn't tell me that.
It mentions here.
The dog got a heart murmur.
We're gonna talk about Miss Kamala Harris, girl. She is our new VP. What do you think about that?
I think it's pretty good. It doesn't bother me. I would prefer to have somebody of color as opposed to somebody who's a racist.
What do you mean, someone of color?
Well,
She's
Kamala
very
Harris.
She's very light skinned. There's not much color now.
Well, she has more color than, let's say, others that would probably have been selected had it not been her. I feel like they just wanted to have someone of color, so they picked the lightest person so that white people wouldn't be offended.
Why would white people be offended? What's wrong with white folk? Why would they be offended?
I don't think there's something wrong with them generally, but it seems that historically that in this country, there's been a thing since the slave days of having a preference for, like, let's say the lightest skinned women gets to work in the house in the slave days, and the darker women were out in the field picking cotton and doing things that weren't as, like, close to the house and in the house with the family. Like, they seem like they wanted a woman changing their daughter's diapers and taking care of their child who was as light as can be and was light and white almost, so they wouldn't feel such a difference and such prejudice towards her.
It kind of reminds me of back in the days where, you know, when you had slavery, the darker slave women were outdoor slaves and the lighter slave women were indoor slaves. And it just kind of goes back to appearance and what people deem beautiful. And even as back as those days, beauty was considered, you know, more light-skinned, fair-skinned people. And I just kind of feel like with all the beautiful Black women in the world that could potentially have gotten this position, they picked the fairest light-skinned woman they could find, who's also married to a Caucasian man, which there's nothing wrong with that. I support interracial marriage or dating, but I just feel like, wow.
Absolutely. Another shocker in this world.
That just seems strange. What do you think?
I think that she has some good ideas, but that there were more typical candidates that could have been more qualified, that could have even done a better job. Like you had suggested Condoleezza Rice, or somebody who really had a great deal about politics and not just about prison stuff and things of that nature, Medicaid reform. Some people have stronger issues for the people, and it's better to get someone more qualified than how they look, if they look pretty to white people or
not. I don't know. I mean, I just hope that everyone makes a good vote for what they believe in. Are you voting?
I already did. For the first one. Yeah, I have a ballot that gets at home and I fill it out, and I filled out the first one. And then in November, I get to vote again.
Now, how does that work? How does that process work?
I go and have it arranged so that I can have an independent ballot at home, so that I don't have to stand in a booth in a line and do it all a technical way, because it did cause me a little bit of anxiety about slicking down all the things. I just wanted to be calm and really think who I was picking and return it. It made way more sense.
All right, so I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
What exactly is the role for the VP? What exactly, because I don't think a lot of people know what their role is. Do you know exactly what their role is, the vice president?
Yes, they're actually the person who's next in line in case of the president can't fulfill their duties. It's somebody who's basically like a president understudy, but he or she is there in case of the president gets murdered or falls off the face of the earth or gets abducted by aliens, and then that person gets in charge.
Well, let's hold that thought. So according to our good old trusty, good old Google friend, other than to succeed to the presidency upon the death or resignation of the president, a vice president's only constitutional duty is to preside over the Senate. So speak for them, preside over them. And then it says, vice presidents cannot vote in the Senate except to break a tie, nor may they formally address the Senate except with the senator's permission.
So it's,
I don't know about you, but what do you think is important to you with this whole election thing that's coming up? Like, what are at least 3 things that are important to you with this election?
qualifications, having the right purpose in mind to help the people of America, and somebody who has some kind of moral compass and ethics to them. I think that those qualities would bring the best performance for a leader I would look up to.
I think for me, I definitely want to see safety measures being brought up. I do think we need some form of border safety, making sure that drugs are not being smuggled in, so our streets can get safe again and clean. I definitely want to see big business pay tax and be brought back to our country, production.
Yeah.
I would love to have someone in office who believes in we building our own stuff, America, instead of sending everything overseas. I don't think that's right. We need jobs here. We need to bring back jobs. And I just don't think that it's fair that a big company can, send their production overseas, take away jobs from us, and they get away with it, and then pay little tax. That's not right.
And not to mention the kickbacks they get. Not to mention the kickbacks they get. They get cut deals. They're the ones, poor people need to have a deal. These companies have millions of dollars. Why do they need such a saucy deal just to basically, like, it's manipulation all across the board?
I just think that we need a cabinet who believes in for the people. Now, last night, Trump did say something that I appreciated. He talked about if the Democrats come in, suburbia will be invaded with public housing, meaning that they want to buy some property in the suburban area and build public housing. And he said that will be kind of like bad because people who work hard or the middle class, they won't really have anything to look forward to, because if you're working hard to get out of the ghetto, out of the hood, and move into the suburbs, and then when you come to the suburbs, you got housing projects just across the street or down the way, what are you working hard for? What are you looking to do? So when Trump has said that, I thought that was very powerful, but there's a lot of things that I do disagree with. But I wouldn't want to see the suburbs invaded with public housing, because there's a time where I too want to be further up in the middle class, and I too want to be further up and moving in my location. So what do you think about that when Trump said that if the Democrats come into office, there would be an invasion of, public housing in the suburbs?
The word invasion of any form coming out of a leader who's in control and makes rules and gets things done is cringeworthy to me. I hate the idea of invasion, because it almost reminds me that the middle class will be decimated, so that there's only very wealthy and extremely poor, and that the people extremely poor will have things happen to thin out population, and that the people that are rich will be so far away because there will no longer be a middle class. It's almost like it's being evaporated, that people can just have a regular job and their wife can have a part-time job and they could have kids that go to a good school and pay their house taxes and things of that nature. It seems like it's being just wiped out, the middle class. So the word tax or whatever, I don't like that.
The word what?
What was the word you gave?
Invaded.
Invaded. That's terrible. Why would any person that's an American citizen want their community invaded? But why do we want someone that has such strong control that they could separate and weed out as if they're mining for gold and sifting out a bunch of sand, and the gold gets to be ultra rich and everyone else is sand. Nobody can be in the middle and be middle class. I just don't like that idea of it.
So,
Now, could we have a couple of deep thoughts with Misty for a second or two? See, I want to talk about some colorism and how come a vice president gets selected as like she's in the House because she's less threatening because of her Caucasian features. And let's talk about it in general as colorism in the music industry, in Hollywood, in the modeling industry, why lighter is considered better and why dark is almost like they throw in a tiny little specks of dark just to try to appease, but mostly they want to let it be 1,000% clear that light is better. It's almost the message that I get on the covers of magazines and music videos. Even when I hear guys around the neighborhood talking about girls that they think are pretty, they talk about them in Threadbone. They talk about light skin or the light eyes or the one with the blonde hair and she light skin like Faith. I think that it should be less about looks and judging people by physical things and more about their essence and their soul and their knowledge and what they bring to a table in a spiritual realm, like of substance, and the value that they have isn't just, oh, she's light, so she's more acceptable, or oh, she's dark, so she's not pretty. What a horrible message to send to beautiful women that are dark-skinned, medium-skinned. What are little girls supposed to think in a world of all these white Barbies with blue eyes and blonde hair? They have a couple Malibu Stacy's, and once in a while they'll get a dark-skinned doll, but they'll even make her look almost racially unambiguous. It's from a young age that girls are taught, especially, that they have to look lighter and they have to act whiter in order to be of value or to have a good husband or a good job or a better chance at a good, successful position in society. It's not okay. People should not be the value of them based on a physical thing that they can't help. They were born that way, really.
does it really affect you?
It doesn't affect me per se because I am Caucasian. They wouldn't colorist me originally because they would be too busy. Colorism is just more in an African American and Indian cultures where there's a lot of melanin and a lot of possibilities for dark skin.
I definitely can speak.
It bothers me. It bothers me to hear other people doing it. It bothers me to hear Black men talk about their own Black queens and like rate them as a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and the 4-star looks light as can be, and the 1-star is dark and chocolatey. I have African American friends, and I think I must say that colorism affects all races, but African American race in particular, I see a lot of issues there. Just based on what celebrities, what models, what singers, what entertainers are pushed ahead as opposed to ones who are held back. It seems like having more Caucasian features a thinner nose, lighter skin, smoother straight hair is promoted to a very good position in life. And people who have more traditionally African American features are almost held back, sometimes women even by their own men, judging them on a rating based on how light or dark they are, dark being unattractive or undesirable, and light being more sought after. It's a horrible.
What are African American features? You said, you know, African American features. What are those features? Are like, you know, when we talk about features, like what do you mean by that? You know, do you mean, hold on one second, because I have to unmute you. What do you mean by, oops, you gotta unmute yourself, girl, I'm sorry. What do you mean by African American features? Like, describe what that means.
Okay, my thought about it is that features of dark skin, maybe a wider, bankier nose, maybe fuller lips, and more of a traditional look in Africa in and of itself, or resembling that shade or features that were originally from Africa or from the people's place of origin, as opposed to a scale of lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter till it's almost what they used to call passable, like singers back in the day who could pass as white, like in the 1940s and 50s.
Okay, that's interesting. All right. Well, let's talk about this.
Hi again, it's me, Misty, and I am going to show you a A-line gardening tip because I love gardening. It's my hobby. It gives me spiritual enlightenment to sit around and see some beautiful, beautiful flowers and cultivate them and give them gifts of water and life so that they can flourish. And the first thing is water, water, water. See, to me, the very most important thing is water. Water, water, water. It gives the plants life and it makes them flourish and it makes them nurtured and create beauty by giving them the water that they need to flourish. A second thing that I would recommend is mulch. When you have old leaves that you rake up in the fall, you just put them into a compactor or have them disintegrate. And in fall, you just spread them all around the ground of the plants, the base of the plants. And of course, they give so many vitamins, and you don't have to buy as many of those brown city bags to put them to the dump. And the love. It is a labor of love. I'm Misty, and those were my gardening tips.
Thank you, Misty. Those were really good tips. I definitely want to grow my garden. I want to be able to buy my, not buy my own food, but grow my own food and cultivate my own food. So thank you, Misty. That was great tips. I'll see you later.
Bye, until we meet again.